And the
Yes.
third reason has to do with my experience in Israel and elsewhere to show that it is a myth to think that anti-Semitism was always an inherent part of many nationalist or right-wing movements, whereas today it's clear it is generated overwhelmingly by the left under the encouragement, wealth, and power of a militant Islam.
Yes. Yes, and we are seeing the encroachment of militant Islam, not just in Israel, everywhere. We're seeing it here. It's becoming more and more prevalent. This must give you some great cause for concern, Dr. Berdichevsky.
Yes, as I explained, it was a major reason in, first of all, writing this book, and I'm active in trying to alert the American public. One of the largest chapters in the book is the historical record of jihad and its involvement in brutality, in genocide for over 1,000 years of history, including our own history. The first conflict the United States was involved in was against the Barbary pirates that had violated every rule of the sea and international order. And we faced a problem then that is similar to the one we face now, and opposition to American resistance to jihad was based on don't rock the boat, don't get involved, don't upset Muslims. They're a large community. At that time, we only bought dates from them. But today, of course, they are in possession of an enormous resource, which the whole world needs, oil, and that has definitely muddied our moral position.
Yeah, it has. And, you know, the irony of that, Dr. Berdichevsky, is that we have all of the oil and coal and natural gas, the resources, energy resources that we need right here in America, right underneath our soil. And we, through political reasons, have not been allowed to tap into that. This has set us up to be dependent on a culture that is still, in many, many ways, living in the 7th century. Again, how does this play into the left-right paradigm?
Well, what we have is an absurd contradiction in terms, but nevertheless a reality that much of the political left all over the world strongly finds in militant Islam an ally, as long as it was directed against what they conceived as somehow European, Western, or American involvement in the past in the affairs of the Middle East. They have come to turn not one blind eye, but two blind eyes, stuff their ears, and shut up as well over all the excesses, the wholesale violation of the rights of minorities, of non-Muslims, of deviant Muslims, of women, of children. These cry out for condemnation, and yet the left prefers not to say a word because they find it convenient to have this creature that they feel is a weapon they can use to beat us and instill a false sense of guilt where no guilt is due whatsoever.
Yeah, you referred back to Jonah Goldberg's best-selling book, Liberal Fascism. I have to confess I've not yet read it, even after all this time and so much conversation about it. The whole notion of liberalism is, to me, and I want to ask you what your opinion of it is, to me it is, and this is, I'm sure I'm going to catch a lot of flack for this, but liberals don't seem to want to be held accountable to absolute truths that are held in the Bible, in the Torah, in the commandments, in the Constitution. They seem to always be looking for the easy way out. Is that overly simplistic?
Well, I think that's very much part of the liberal ideology, that if there are no absolutes, everything is relative. You can explain away anything. They can tell you, therefore, well, the Islamic world doesn't respect the rights of individuals, of women, of minorities, of children, but, and they always have a but, these people were oppressed, or they'll come up with any kind of reason that allows them to do what's easiest, what's most convenient. The same was true on the eve of World War II. Why appeasement was so attractive. Why risk war? Why risk conflict? I mean, let's compromise, even if it was someone else who had to pay the price, like the Czechs at the Munich Agreement.
And so is the history of man. It's always been this way, it seems. Now, but you talk about, in the book, you talk about the 60s revisited, the age of Aquarius. Was this the renaissance of liberalism coming again to the fore?
Well, it went far beyond liberalism and tolerated and then even endorsed violent demonstrations, wholesale illegality, in the name always of a good cause, which produced the kind of characters who have come back and who are in positions of either authority or high up in academia, like some of Obama's colleagues in Chicago, Lou Ayres and others. I lived through it. I mean, I'm 68, so I was at college and graduate school in the 60s. Had a number of experiences, which I relate in the chapter, where I found out for all my liberal background, it didn't count for much. I was still called a fascist pig if I dared voice any disagreement with the standard left program. So you weren't in lockstep with the counterculture of the 60s. You saw I had my own.
Right.
I had my own doubts about Vietnam and the justification for being there, but I didn't find that to be a reason to unleash the kind of hysteria and chaos that resulted. And I saw how much of American society began to slide. I was at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, which is often regarded by many as one of the two most liberal centers of university life in America. And there was a student doing research on an important project late at night who was killed. The unanticipated result of radical students who felt just putting a bomb in a laboratory was a way to protest American policy. I attended a meeting on the campus where, following a film, individuals got up on the stage in the uniform of the then Black Panther Party, gave orders to other members to close the doors, and told everyone in the audience, "You are forbidden to leave." And when I and other students protested and faced the possibility of a fist fight to leave, I'm glad to say that was when I was called a fascist pig, as the Black Panther leader on the stage ordered his guards to let the fascist pigs pass, and I reported it to the university the next day. They had no interest in pursuing the matter.
Shocking, but not surprising, even then. My goodness. My goodness.
Yes, this was 1970.
Yeah. Huh. I was at a rally, a Tea Party rally in Washington D.C. A year ago, April, and somebody was there in the crowd was holding up a sign, a poster, and it was a photograph of Senator Joe McCarthy, and it had one word imprinted on it, and the word was vindicated. And I thought, how perfect, how absolutely perfect. A lot of people disagreed with his methodology, but Senator Joe McCarthy understood that we were being infiltrated by the communists. And I read something just last night that said that while McCarthy was making accusations against many people who actually weren't communists, may have joined the Communist Party because it was the chic thing to do, but really didn't have a dog in the race, so to speak. The real communists, it was providing cover for the real communists who were coming into this country, who were insinuating themselves in our government, etc. And you have a chapter about the religious left and the Senate censure of Senator McCarthy. I'd like to hear a brief synopsis, if you would, of that chapter. That fascinates me.
Well, he was someone who liked to play to the grandstand. He at times used demagogic methods, but no worse than other politicians. And he was censored not really for any what I would call ethical violation, but he became involved in a dispute as a result of his association with someone, Joseph Brown Matthews, a man who was appointed by McCarthy to do research and who had previously established a reputation for himself as an outstanding spokesman for civil rights for blacks and a liberal. But Matthews turned around and reversed his political views, and while working for McCarthy, he published an article called Reds in Our Churches in the conservative magazine American Mercury. And in the article, Matthews referred to the Protestant clergy. Remember, McCarthy was a Catholic from the Midwest, from Wisconsin. He certainly was out of sympathy with the leading lights in the Republican Party from the East Coast with Ivy League backgrounds. Matthews published the article in which he said, although, and the although is often forgotten, the clergy of all faiths in America is loyal. Nevertheless, the largest single group supporting the communist apparatus in the United States is the Protestant clergy. Now, that was certainly an exaggeration, but the left wastes, and I mean also the religious left. People only use the term religious right as if all those who are of any religious faith normally are expected to have conservative views, but there is a significant religious left in America. And they jumped on McCarthy for what they believed was a libel. Now, McCarthy's critics felt this was a time to label McCarthy with a censure because even in the Republican Party there were forces that were very unhappy about his popularity, that McCarthy had established a reputation as a crusader.